What if I told you the same grade of baldness doesn't always look the same? Yes, it's true, because hair loss affects everyone differently, even when the grade is the same. In this video, we will tell you 4 completely different stories of the same grade of baldness. 2 of them were battling the challenges of diffuse grade 3A baldness, while the other 2 were dealing with diffuse grade 5A baldness. One of whom had been experiencing hair loss for the past 3 to 4 years, primarily due to genetics, as his father also struggled with baldness. This hereditary factor gradually pushed him into a more advanced stage of hair loss. The other one tried to take control of his hair loss, for which he tried homeopathic medicines, which did slow down the shedding to some extent. But it never completely stopped. Over time, the thinning progressed and his hairline continued to recede. Now you might be wondering, if 2 people have the same grade of baldness, shouldn't their treatment be the same? Does the grade decide the exact number of grafts needed? Can 2 people with the same grade expect similar results? Well, here's the interesting part. Even with the same baldness grade, each patient had a distinct pattern of hair loss. That's why the number of grafts we implanted varied in every case, customized precisely to their specific needs and the exact areas affected. Stay tuned till the end to witness their amazing results and see how their journey progresses from the first few months to a complete year or further. Patient 1 had baldness of diffuse grade 3A. In his case, the hairline had not receded, but thinning was spread across the affected areas. The density in the frontal region had reduced, and there was mild thinning in a small portion of the mid-scalp. The rest of the scalp had healthy hair follicles with good coverage. Our experts planned to restore density in the hairline, fill the frontal zone, and address the slightly affected mid-scalp area to achieve a fuller, more balanced look. Patient 2 also had diffuse grade 3, a baldness, but his pattern was different. His hairline had receded in an M-shaped pattern, creating visible sparseness at the frontal corners. There was also thinning through the center of the frontal area, extending slightly into the mid-scalp. The remaining areas of the scalp had healthy growth. Although patient 1 and patient 2 were diagnosed with the same grade of baldness, their patterns were different. Patient 1 had uniform thinning without hairline recession, while patient 2 had a receding hairline combined with patchy sparseness in the frontal zone. When assessing their donor areas, both had healthy follicles with almost similar density. However, patient 2's hair length was slightly longer, which made his donor area appear denser to the eye. Patient 3 presented with diffuse grade 5A baldness. His hairline had receded significantly, and both his frontal area and mid-scalp were almost completely sparse, with only a few scattered follicles remaining in the center. The thinning extended from the hairline to the end of the mid-scalp. Interestingly, his crown region was unaffected and retained healthy, dense growth, making it a good contrast to the affected zones. Patient 4 also had diffuse grade 5A baldness with a recession pattern very similar to patient 3. His frontal area and mid-scalp were almost completely sparse, with just a few miniature follicles scattered in between. However, in his case, the mid-scalp was more severely affected than patient 3's, and the thinning extended slightly into the crown region. When examining their donor areas, both had strong and healthy follicles, making them good candidates for transplantation. However, patient 4's donor area was noticeably denser than patient 3's, which provided a slight advantage in terms of graft availability. Even though all 4 patients were diagnosed with the same respective grades of baldness, 2 with diffuse grade 3A and 2 with diffuse grade 5A, the way their hair loss appeared was completely different. This is because the grade only indicates the extent of hair loss, not the pattern. The actual pattern depends on multiple factors, including genetics, the sensitivity of specific follicles to DHT, scalp blood circulation, and even one's lifestyle influences the baldness. For example, in grade 3A, one patient experienced uniform thinning without a change in hairline, while the other had significant hairline recession, creating an M-shaped pattern. Similarly, in grade 5A, one patient's crown remained dense while another's thinning extended into the crown, making his baldness look more advanced. These variations happen because each person's follicles have different genetic resistance levels. Some areas are programmed to miniaturize faster, while others remain stable for longer. If you're also noticing hair thinning or the early stage of baldness, you can simply share your pictures with us. Our doctors will help you understand your current stage and guide you on whether you need a hair transplant or not. Once the initial assessment and grade analysis were completed, our experts moved on to the next step, which was designing the hairline. This stage is about ensuring balanced markings for even density and harmony with the patient's unique facial features. Before the design process began, each patient's hair was trimmed and their scalp was thoroughly cleansed. This ensures a clean working surface, better visibility for planning, and accurate marking of the recipient areas. For patient 1, a custom-shaped hairline was created to restore both the frontal hairline and the surrounding thinning zones. The design included careful angulation and density planning to achieve a youthful yet natural look. The entire affected frontal region was outlined to ensure even coverage. For patient 2, the hairline was shaped to complement his facial proportions while still addressing the larger extent of his frontal thinning. The design extended slightly further back than in patient 1 to ensure a balanced density across the entire affected area. For patient 3, who had a diffuse grade 5A baldness pattern, the hairline was designed not just to frame the face, but also to integrate seamlessly with mid-scalp restoration. The markings extended well into the mid-scalp area, considering the gradual thinning pattern that needed more graft distribution. For patient 4, also with grade 5A baldness, but with wider hair loss coverage than patient 3, the design extended beyond the mid-scalp and reached into the crown region. His pattern required careful allocation of grafts to maintain a uniform look, even in the most visible top and back areas. This individualized approach ensured that each patient's design was not only artistically pleasing, but also technically sustainable for long-term natural results. Once the hairline designs were finalized, the procedure began with the administration of local anesthesia to both the recipient and donor areas, ensuring a completely painless experience for the patients throughout the surgery. For patient 1, diagnosed with diffuse grade 3A baldness, the goal was to restore the hairline with a soft and natural look. Single and thin hair follicles were implanted along the hairline for a feathered appearance, while double and triple follicles were implanted in the frontal and mid-scalp zones to create density. In his case, a total of 2,300 grafts were implanted, all extracted from the safe donor zone at the back of the scalp. Patient 2 also had diffuse grade 3A baldness, but his thinning extended slightly further into the mid-scalp than patient 1. The hairline design was restored using single follicles, while the frontal area and mid-scalp zones received double and triple follicles for volume. Because his affected area was slightly larger, for him, 3,000 grafts were implanted, all extracted from the safe donor zone. Patient 3, with diffuse grade 5A baldness, required a more extensive restoration. Single follicles were implanted in the newly designed hairline to maintain a natural look, while the frontal area and mid-scalp were filled with double and triple follicles to maximize density. His coverage area was significantly larger than the first 2 patients, which required 3,650 grafts extracted from the patient's safe donor area. Patient 4, also grade 5A, had a coverage area similar to patient 3, but with slightly more thinning extending into the crown. After designing a natural hairline with single and thin hair follicles, the frontal area and mid-scalp zones were implanted with double and triple follicles, and the crown was addressed with carefully angled implants to match natural growth patterns. This broader coverage required 4,100 grafts, all extracted from the patient's safe donor zone. Even though patients 1 and 2 had the same baldness grade, and patients 3 and 4 shared the same grade, if you want to learn more about the procedure, comment hair transplant. Our experts will tell you every aspect of hair transplant. After the transplant, each patient visited the clinic at different periods to show their progress. So let's take a look. 1 month post-transplant, patients 1, 2, and 3 visited the clinic for their first scheduled follow-up. This stage allows our experts to assess healing, manage expectations, and ensure that each patient's scalp and transplanted follicles are progressing as planned. For patient 1, our experts observed minimal shedding in the transplanted area. This shedding is a part of the post-transplant cycle and happens when the hair shafts detach to make way for new follicular growth. The patient also showed mild redness along the implanted hairline and frontal area, a common post-surgery sign that gradually fades over a few weeks. Importantly, his donor area had completely healed, and there were no signs of infection, irritation, or dandruff. His overall healing process was exactly on track. Patient 2, on the other hand, exhibited a slightly different pattern. Our team noted approximately 40% shedding in the transplanted area, which was higher than patient 1. This is completely normal, as the hair growth cycle varies from person to person. While some patients shed more and others less, it does not impact the final result. His native, non-transplanted hair continued to grow at its usual rate. His donor zone also healed well, even with short hair growth. The extraction points were virtually invisible, demonstrating QHT's precision in extracting follicles. For patient 3, minimal shedding was observed, similar to patient 1. His transplanted area remained healthy and the native follicles were growing at a steady, natural pace. The donor area had fully recovered with no visible extraction signs, confirming optimal postoperative care and technique. At this 1-month stage, all 3 patients underwent their first PRP, platelet-rich plasma therapy session. PRP involves drawing a small amount of the patient's blood, processing it to extract platelet-rich plasma, and then injecting it into the scalp. This treatment nourishes the newly implanted follicles, improves blood circulation, and helps accelerate the transition from the resting to the active growth phase. By the end of this follow-up, all 3 patients had healthy scalps, well-healed donor areas, and no complications, clear indicators that their progress was on track. Patient 1 returned for his second post-transplant follow-up, while patient 4 visited the clinic for the first time after his procedure. This stage is often referred to as the extended shedding phase, a completely natural part of the recovery process where the transplanted hair shafts fall out to prepare for fresh growth. For patient 1, our specialists observed that the shedding had now progressed to approximately 60% in the transplanted areas, a predictable development since the shedding phase typically lasts between 3 to 4 months. The native hair, however, continued to grow with maturity and fullness, ensuring the scalp maintained a balanced appearance during this temporary transition. His donor area was completely undetectable even upon close examination. Patient 4, attending his first follow-up, was also evaluated thoroughly. He had experienced around 90% shedding, the highest percentage observed among all 4 patients in our ongoing series. Despite this, his native hair growth remained healthy and mature. His donor area had also healed perfectly, with no visible scarring or uneven texture. During this visit, he underwent his first PRP therapy session to speed up the onset of the active growth phase. While the shedding might seem concerning to patients, both cases were well within the expected recovery timeline, and the months ahead will bring visible new growth and density improvements. Patient 1 arrived for his third follow-up, and patient 2 returned for his second post-transplant evaluation. By this stage, the most crucial transition in the hair transplant journey from the shedding phase to the active growth phase was well underway for both patients. For patient 1, our experts noted that the shedding phase had completely concluded and the transplanted follicles were now firmly rooted and producing fresh strands. The emerging growth displayed a healthy texture and the hairline had started taking a defined, natural shape. From the frontal view, he appeared to have achieved a noticeable boost in volume, giving a fuller and more youthful frame to his face. However, when assessed from a downward angle, minor gaps in density could still be seen in certain areas of the scalp, a normal occurrence at this stage. These gaps are expected to gradually close as the hair continues to thicken over the next few months. For patient 2, a similar recovery pattern was observed. The shedding phase had ended, and the follicles were actively transitioning into the growth cycle. The new hair shafts were beginning to surface with his native hair. Interestingly, the non-transplanted areas on his scalp exhibited voluminous growth, which further enhanced the overall appearance during this intermediate stage. This period marks the foundation for the even coverage that will become apparent between the 6th and 12th months post-transplant. 5 months after the hair transplant procedures, patient 3 and patient 4 returned to the clinic for their second post-surgery evaluation. By this stage, the transition from early growth to an established phase was visible, yet the journey toward full density was still ongoing. For patient 3, our experts noted a well-defined improvement in the hairline, which was now taking a natural and balanced contour. The transplanted follicles in the frontal zone were growing steadily, producing mature strands. While minor gaps were still visible when viewed from certain angles, these were entirely expected at this stage. In the mid-scalp and crown regions, however, there was a boost in volume, giving the scalp an overall good appearance. Patient 4 showed a similar development pattern. His hairline was also beginning to frame his face with improved definition, and the follicles were maturing with healthy texture. The frontal area displayed visible growth, but like patient 3, gaps were still visible there. In his mid-scalp and crown region, hair growth was evident but slightly less voluminous compared to patient 3. A highlight in his progress was the intact swirl at the crown, which was growing in a natural direction, enhancing the realism of his results. His donor area was virtually undetectable. At this stage, it is entirely normal to see minor gaps in transplanted areas. Over the next few months, these areas will progressively fill in, leading to a thicker, more even coverage. We have now reached the mid-phase of the hair transplant journey, and the progress so far is right on track. If you also want to overcome baldness, book your consultation with our experts today. 7 months post-transplant, both patient 1 and patient 2 visited the clinic for their follow-up, and their transformation was amazing. Patient 1 now displayed a hairline that was not only perfectly defined but also artistically designed to complement and frame his facial features. The once thinning frontal region was now filled with dense, healthy hair growth, with seamless blending between transplanted and native hair. The texture, shine, and direction of growth matched naturally, making it impossible to distinguish between the two. The mid-scalp and crown had filled in uniformly, offering an even coverage across the scalp. The improvement significantly rejuvenated his overall look, restoring a youthful balance to his appearance. Patient 2 showcased equally impressive progress. His hairline was sharp, proportionate, and tailored to his facial symmetry. The frontal zone and mid-scalp exhibited voluminous density, while the transition into his native hair was smooth and undetectable. Areas that were not affected by hair loss had also maintained their fullness, which further enhanced the uniform look of his scalp. The growth pattern and direction were consistent, and the overall hair volume was enough to style freely without concern for visible gaps. For both patients, this marked the first true glimpse of their near-final results. While the density and texture were already close to completion, the upcoming months would bring even more maturity, thickness, and natural blending. The journey so far had exceeded expectations, and the progress was going well. 11 months post-transplant, both patient 1 and patient 4 visited the clinic, revealing transformations that truly reflected the artistry and precision of their hair transplants. Patient 1 arrived with his final results in full display. His hairline had matured beautifully, taking on a natural yet well-defined contour that perfectly complemented his facial structure. The frontal area, once visibly thinning, was now densely packed with healthy hair, creating a full and youthful appearance. The mid-scalp and crown also showed impressive density, with every region blending seamlessly. Compared to his 7-month progress, the volume, texture, and coverage had noticeably improved, and his results are expected to maintain their natural appearance for many years to come. Patient 4 visited for his 3rd follow-up. His hairline had settled into a balanced, natural shape, framing his face. The frontal and mid-scalp zones, which previously displayed significant thinning due to diffuse grade 5, a baldness, were now filled with thick, voluminous hair. The transition between transplanted and native hair was so seamless that even under close observation, no distinction could be made. His untreated crown had developed a natural swirl pattern, adding to the realism of the overall result. Both patients showcased exceptional growth. Patient 1, starting with diffuse grade 3 of baldness, achieved outstanding density, while patient 4, despite a more advanced grade 5 of baldness, gained robust coverage and volume. 12 months post-transplant, both patient 2 and patient 3 visited the clinic to present their 12-month post-transplant progress, each showing a distinct transformation based on their initial baldness patterns and hair growth pace. Patient 2 arrived with a hairline that had now reached full maturity. Compared to his 7-month results, the hairline appeared softer, more natural, and perfectly aligned with his facial proportions. The density across the frontal, mid-scalp, and crown was lush and even, creating a youthful, full-bodied look. His transformation from the initial stage of baldness to this final result was nothing short of dramatic. For someone who once had limited styling options, he now enjoys complete freedom to choose any haircut or hairstyle he desires, restoring not only his hair, but also his self-confidence and personal style. Patient 3, who began with diffuse grade 5 of baldness, an advanced stage with significant thinning, also showed notable improvement over the year. His hairline had taken a well-defined shape, framing his face naturally. However, his growth rate was slower compared to the other 3 patients in this series. While his density was not yet as thick as theirs, this is entirely normal for certain patients, especially in higher grade baldness cases. His hair transplant was progressing well, and the transplanted hair will continue to gain thickness and coverage over the next several months. With more time, his scalp will appear denser, and the final outcome will be more evident. Both cases highlight that every patient's journey is unique, shaped by baldness grade, growth pace, and individual hair characteristics. 13 months post-transplant. Patient 4 visited the clinic for his follow-up, eager to showcase his final results. Having last visited at the 12-month mark, the difference in just 1 month was subtle, yet significant. His hair had now taken on a more mature and refined appearance, marking the completion of his transformation. The hairline was perfectly defined, framing his facial features with precision and a natural flow. What once appeared as a receded and thinning front was now a strong, youthful frame. The frontal zone displayed dense, uniform coverage, with no visible gaps or irregularities, while the mid-scalp showed a rich, voluminous texture that enhanced the overall density. One of the standout improvements was the crown region, where the natural swirl pattern had developed fully, adding to the realistic and undetectable result. Every zone, from the hairline to the crown, was filled in beautifully, leaving no patchiness or artificial look. Compared to his earlier follow-ups, the 13-month mark revealed the final polish in his results. Patient 4, who began with diffuse grade 5, a baldness, had successfully regained a full head of hair, restoring not just his appearance, but his confidence. 16 months post-transplant, patient 3 visited the clinic for his follow-up, and this time, his transformation was outstanding. When he last visited at the 12-month mark, his progress was already impressive, yet there were still a few areas, particularly in the mid-scalp, where slight gaps could be noticed under close inspection. Now, 4 months later, those gaps have filled in, creating a uniform, lush coverage across his entire scalp. His hairline has taken its final, mature shape, framing his facial features naturally and proportionately. What was once a receded and undefined front is now a strong, youthful frame with a seamless blend between transplanted and native hair. The frontal zone has developed a rich, dense texture, while the mid-scalp, previously slower in progress, has now caught up, displaying the same volume and fullness. He now enjoys the freedom to style his hair however he wishes, backed by the confidence of a natural, permanent transformation. Patient 1 showcased his final results at the 11-month mark. Patient 2 reached his final stage in 12 months. Patient 3 displayed his complete results at 16 months, and Patient 4 achieved his final look in 13 months. If you also want such a result for yourself, then right now, book a consultation with our experts. In this video, we look at 4 male patients with different grades and patterns of baldness. Patient 1 and Patient 2 both presented with diffuse grade 3A baldness, whereas Patient 3 and Patient 4 had advanced diffuse grade 5A baldness. Patient 1's hairline had receded and thinning spread across his frontal area and mid-scalp, but his crown had fair coverage, and the donor area was healthy. Patient 2, with the same grade of baldness as of 1, had almost disappeared hairline, only a few follicles remaining in the frontal tuft, also affecting a slight area of mid-scalp. The overall look made him appear older than his age. Patient 3, with an advanced stage, had a receded hairline with the frontal area and mid-scalp nearly bare. His donor area was good, but we knew his journey would need more time to reach its full potential. Patient 4 also had an advanced stage of baldness. The affected zones were extensive, from the hairline all the way to the crown, but like Patient 3, his final density would require strategic planning and patience. After careful assessment, our experts customized hairline designs and graft distribution plans for each of them. For Patient 1, 2,300 grafts were implanted. For Patient 2, 3,000 grafts were implanted. For Patient 3, 3,650 grafts were implanted. For Patient 4, 4,100 grafts were implanted. In the first few months, all 4 patients go through a shedding phase where their hair shafts temporarily fall out before regrowing stronger. By 11 months, Patient 1 was ready to showcase his final results. His hairline looked mature and perfectly defined. Every zone, from front to crown, was full and dense. Compared to his starting point, it was a complete transformation. At the same 11-month stage, Patient 4 came in for his follow-up. His hairline had taken on a refined shape, and the mid-scalp was filling out beautifully. Even the crown showed an improved, voluminous swirl. For someone who started with grade 5 of baldness, this was an amazing change. At the 12-month mark, Patient 2 revealed his final look. His hairline was more natural than ever. Density was lush from front to back, and he could now choose any hairstyle he wanted, something impossible before. Patient 3's 12-month visit told a different story. His growth was improving, but still not at peak density. There were light gaps visible, which were common in higher-grade baldness cases at this stage. By 13 months, Patient 4's final results had arrived. The hairline, mid-scalp, and crown were all dense and natural-looking, without gaps or any hint of an artificial appearance. Finally, at 16 months, Patient 3 returned for his last follow-up. Every gap had been filled in. The hairline was solid, the mid-scalp thick, and his entire scalp displayed lush, voluminous growth. While he had taken longer than the others, his results were proof that patience pays off. As we mentioned earlier, if two people have the same grade of baldness, shouldn't their treatment be the same? Shouldn't they need the same number of grafts and get the same results? The answer is no. The grade only gives us a general framework. If you're experiencing early signs of hair loss or have already tried other treatments without results, now is the time to consult our experts. Send us your scalp pictures and we'll guide you toward the best solution. If you found this video informative, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to see this. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell